Hi everyone, my name's Friedrich, but you can call me Fred, and today I'm going to be doing a review of Scott Lynch's The Lies of Locke Lamora. High fantasy is my genre of choice, so I often hear a lot about this book, and all of it's positive, but to be honest, I hadn't heard anything specific about it until I sat down and started to read it. Before I got my hands on it, the things I knew about it were that it was set in a city, and it was about a guy named Locke Lamora who did a lot of social climbing by lying. That's literally all I knew, is that it was some lying bastard fucking around in a fantasy city. I didn't know that it was in like the typical fantasy Venice. I was confused by the map at first. As you can see here, it's divided into sections, and I was like, what's dividing the sections in it? It was canals, because it's Venice. And I wasn't aware that Locke himself was a part of what was called in the book the right people, which are the thieves and scoundrels of Comore, which is the name of this particular fantasy Venice. There are a lot of fantasy Venices. If you've read any amount of high fantasy, you've seen at least 7. But he is, and he's a part of a particular group of thieves and scoundrels and scumbags known as the Gentlemen Bastards. And the Gentlemen Bastards are unique in that they don't actually like pickpocket. They sometimes do, but only as like a means to their greater schemes, which are scams. They're liars, and they rob people by basically defrauding them. They're like the Nigerian princes of high fantasy. So before I get into actually talking about the thing, I'll just let you know my overall view of stuff, and then I'll go into some spoilery discussion. So overall, I gave this a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads. I might have given it a 4.5 if I could have, but maybe not. I don't know, I'm just really glad Goodreads doesn't ask you to get that granular. Like, I'm grateful that it distills like percentages of other reviews into like 4.3765 stars, and then it shows you like that sliver of a star. But even though I had a few problems with this, I still think it's really, really good. The thing that annoys me though is that I feel like I've said this before, but fantasy, and in particular high fantasy, but you know, fantasy in general, I think I know it's my favorite genre because of how much it pisses me off, in that it always gets so close, but it just misses like a certain element, or it just gets something like just a little too wrong, and it misses that 5-star mark. And that was a problem with this. It was a problem with female characters. What's interesting to note is that this book was written pretty recently. It was Scott Lynch's first book, and it was it was published in 2006, when Scott was only 28. So first of all, that's pretty inspiring for me, an author in my 20s. It's like, oh yeah, I can do it. You don't have to be an old man with a beard. But it's interesting to see just how far the genre has come in such a short amount of time. Like, 2006 was only 12 years ago, and I feel like we haven't seen a huge cultural jump yet, despite you know how like we look back on the 20th century, we can divide it by decades and the schools of thought of those decades and the zeitgeist and all those other words that means how people were acting back then. But you know, 2006 is close enough that it's a little difficult to get a grasp on how things have changed and how things were different then. But I think fantasy's made a bunch of leaps and strides in the right direction with its regard to fantasy. I actually said fantasy. Yes, fantasy has made great strides in its regard to fantasy, but also towards women and disabled characters and gay and trans characters and, you know, characters of color and all kinds of readers that get left behind. That was another thing I had a bit of a problem with. There's no gay characters in this, so there wasn't like a problem of like falling into like an evil lesbian trope or a predatory trans woman trope. There was no like tropes like that. But these kids swear a lot because, you know, they're called the Gentlemen Bastards. What are you expecting? I'm fine with swearing. I do it all the time. I think once or twice they do use cocksucker as an insult, and that was kind of like, oh fuck. Oh, don't do that, please. But like I said, 2006 I can say was a different time. I was only 9 years old in 2006, but I was a gay 9-year-old, and I could see what was going on. So I know this series, which is called the Gentle and Bastards series, because of course it is, has continued on. I think there's like another 2 books, maybe 3, and like I think the most recent one was published like in the past 5 years. So I am going to check them out. I don't know when. I have a lot to do. But hopefully that lessens, and we do get more female characters. In terms of the plot, which is what people actually talk about sometimes when they do reviews, this was a really good plot for like most of it. I feel like it kind of it shittened as it went on. So in the beginning you're kind of thrown in the deep end. You're thrown into like several deep ends actually. You start off with Locke as a little kid. He's an orphan, taken in under the thief maker, who's the guy who takes in orphans and teaches them to be thieves, which, you know, it's a fantasy story. There's a fuck ton of orphans. I don't know, I kind of liked that aspect of it, where it was sort of like a little tongue-in-cheek, but also like taking it seriously, because like this is effectively a mafia-run city, and there's like rampant crime and rampant violence, and there have been plagues, there have been fires. One of the districts is literally called Catchfire because, well, I mean, you can guess. So there are like a lot of orphans all over the place, except for here, which is where the rich people live, on this side of the river. Like basically everywhere else, it's just like good luck if you have parents, I guess. So Locke gets taken in by the thief master, and he's like too much for the thief maker, though he is like their master in like a school teacher kind of way. And he proves too much for the thief maker, because he likes stealing too much, and he likes stealing too much in that he will take more than is acceptable. He will steal from guards, which is against the secret peace. There's like it's a secret peace between the guards and the right people. They don't steal from the guards, and the guards look the other way. So basically being a guard is like a way to safeguard your own money, because you know the thieves won't touch you, because if the thieves touch you, you can touch them. So the thief master dumps Locke off with a priest named Chains, who is chained to his temple and is blind. He is actually neither of those things. He's another charlatan, and he's the founder of the Gentlemen Bastards. And we see Locke getting dropped off, and then we like immediately jump into when Locke is like, I would place him in like his early 20s, and he's gallivanting this about the city in a disguise, disguise that looks like the kind of shit I wear, because he's pretending to be a stuffy merchant from the north, where they wear black heavy shit. I would say I themed this outfit on purpose, but all of my outfits look like this. And I'm not going to say any more, because then spoilers. But basically, you always know less than the characters do for the first chunk. That was a funny accent. The first chunk of the story, you know more than the characters know. It's confusing, that's the point. The characters know more than you do, which definitely helps set up the idea of them being masters of deception and scammery. They're in on the prank, they're in on the scam, you're not. You're just dragged along for the ride. And you basically have to piece things together as they go. You think they're in trouble, they're not. You think they're safe, they're not. You don't know what's a real threat and what's something they've concocted, and it really like draws you into the verisimilitude of the deception. It's a really good setup, and it definitely gives these characters their bona fides as thieves and conmen. As the story goes on, your perspective kind of flips. I mean, you stay like with Locke the whole time, but your level of knowledge kind of surpasses his. No, actually, you don't stay with Locke all the time. Locke is your main point of view character, but you sometimes do slip into other characters. Like the perspective of Doña Sofia, who is someone he's conning. And once you start to get into their perspectives, you start to realize that there are forces at work that are bigger than Locke, and Locke thinks he knows what's going on, but he really doesn't. And there's like, towards the middle, there's a bit where you think you know everything everyone is doing. You think you know more than Locke, and Locke thinks he knows more than everyone else. But you don't. You get flipped upside down and betrayed, and so does Locke, and from that point on, everything's kind of way back to not knowing what the hell is going on. The writing style I quite liked for a lot of it. I felt like the characters spoke quite genuinely. I felt like they were real people, and they're like thieves living in a shitty slummy city, so they occasionally, well, I mean, they often swear, and they're not always nice, but the way they're written is kind of charming in a way, and they're, as gentlemen bastards, they have like training from this priest, Chains. He taught them how to pretend to be gentlemen. A gentleman is the modifier, not the noun. They're bastards through and through, but they can pretend to be gentlemen, so they occasionally have really good elocution when they need to. And it's really funny when you know that they're acting to watch them act. At one point towards the end, Locke has put back on a disguise he was using in the beginning to con Donna Sophia and her husband. And you can tell he's on like a time limit. Things are gonna go horribly wrong, and he has to pretend to be this fussy upper class dude in a goth coat, and it's quite funny, but also you're like, oh, please save those children. Although sometimes the writing got a bit, it tried a bit too hard. I feel like, especially towards the end in the final showdown, no spoilers yet, it got quite dense. Here, no spoilers, but I'll read you like a paragraph this big. And blank character World, dragging Locke halfway around with him. Whirled in fear of Jean Tannen before he realized Locke must be lying. Whirled for just the half second that Locke would have begged from any god that would hear his prayer. Whirled for the half second that was worth Locke's entire life. Blank character. Whirled just long enough for Locke Lamora to... Spoilers. Like, okay, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 sentences. No. Bloody hell. That was 2 sentences and 5 instances of the word world. I get repetition for emphasis. 5 is too many. It's rule of 3s, not rule of 5s. That just sounds awkward. It sounds like you need a thesaurus. Frankly, I think that like could have worked if you just took out the world. If you've just done like blank character world for blank world. Does anybody else lost the meaning of the word word? World. Oh my gosh, this passage is terrible because of that word. Just have it like full blank, blank character world. It's like, just, you don't need to say it so many times. But a lot of the time the writing was really good. It carried me through sufficiently enough. Sometimes it was like engagingly interesting. I have like a bookmark here. What did I bookmark? 19,000, said Bug. 920. That's all of it. Can I please kill myself now? Bug is 12, and I felt like that was some very authentic dialogue, and I quite liked it. The narration is less great than the dialogue, but it's perfectly serviceable, and the fact that I don't have any remarks about it says that it's a great service to this good plot for most of the while. Now I'm going to talk about spoilers for a bit, particularly in regards to the female characters and the problems they had with them. So, if you want to read this book and you haven't done so yet, first of all, I highly recommend that you do, but don't drop it. And I also highly recommend that you go into reading it with plot blind, as I did. So, because it's a book about heisting and thieves and liars and stuff. You don't want to go in knowing the truth. So go read it. Bye. Get out of here. Spoilers. Girls. There were none. Okay. There were some. That's mean. I talked about Donna Sophia. But the thing that really pissed me off is how shafted most of the female characters were. And I mean that quite literally in one case, because one of the few named female characters is a prostitute. And the reason Locke goes to a prostitute is because he misses the only female gentleman bastard. And this gentleman bastard never shows up herself in the book. People talk about her all the time, and the narration just casually mentions that she exists every now and then to make sure you know that she does. Her name is Sabitha. She was there with the gentleman bastard before Locke was, but at the time of Locke's arrival, she was away doing bastard things. And the gentleman bastards like come and go from the city when they're in training. Chains sets them up with just random people he knows, and he like apprentices them out. The gentleman bastards' front is that they are priests, so they all achieve high levels of apprenticeship in all of the priesthoods, so they like can impersonate a priest anytime they need. Which is like a cool concept, because like they actually are ordained priests of the heretical 13th god, and I like having religious characters in books, particularly fantasy religions, because oftentimes the fantasy religion is just a part of the backdrop, the setting, and it never really engages with the characters' lives like the way actual religion does for a lot of people. And so I like having religious characters, but like for ordained priests, they just sort of like tend to acknowledge that god when they need him. Although, no, I take that back. No, okay, for the most of the book, they don't pay much attention to the Crooked Warden. It's their 13th god. They don't pay much attention to him unless they're asking for things. But Locke's final motivation in his final con is to set up a death offering for his dead brothers. So that's like a religious thing, and that's cool that was in there, and I appreciate that. But anyway, Sabitha. Sabitha is the gentleman bastard. She was gone when Locke arrived. She came back, and like for most of Locke's apprenticeship, she was there, she was gone. He knew her really well, and at some point he fell in love with her, and they were like dating, and something happened, and they're not dating anymore, and he really misses her, and he kind of has like a grudge against her too. It's hard to piece together because she's never there, and it really feels tacked on. We get a lot of flashbacks to Locke's apprenticeship with chains, and same for Jean Tannen, one of the other gentleman bastards, and the only one to survive. Anyway, we get a lot of flashbacks to their apprenticeships, but Sabitha is never there. Like, I get that she's away during the events of all this, and it's kind of implied that they're going to see her at the end because they're on a boat and she's far away. She's across the sea. But it's dumb, I think, to just completely erase her out of the narrative. But, like, it's not that they erased her and left her traces, it's that she wasn't there, and then the author decided to like, oh, we'll just like sketch in a girl in the background occasionally. It felt tacked on. She didn't feel like a real character living in the world. She felt like an Easter egg, kind of. She was just kind of like a bonus material out there. I didn't like it. I would have liked to have seen her. What do we know about her? We know that when she was like 13, she had spots, and she was a redhead. She is a redhead. She dated Locke, I think, or Locke was in love with her, and she rejected him, or something like that. There was some kind of romance bullshit with Locke. She's gone now, and she's a gentleman bastard. That's all we know about her. There is one other girl in this story who is of a similar age of Locke, and that is Nazca Basavi. And Nazca Basavi is the daughter and the youngest child to Kappa Basavi, who is basically the mafia don. So the right people are organized into groups, like the Gentlemen Bastards, and the leader of those groups are called Kappas. And Kappa Basavi is like the Kappa of all Kappas. He owns everyone. He doesn't like own them, but like they pay him taxes. He's basically like the Duke, because the real Duke has no idea what the hell's going on in his city. Nazca Basavi is introduced in one of the flashbacks, as a lot of characters are. She's of a similar age of Locke, and she's a mean, drunk 8-year-old wearing boots made of sharks. And it's amazing, because, like, well, a drunk 8-year-old isn't a great picture, but, like, when you're setting up the callous child of a mafia boss, kind of works. Kind of depressing, but she's okay when we see her in like present day. She's not like an alcoholic or anything, so I presume that after her mother's death, her dad took a stronger reign of her and we're like, no more drunken child business around here. Anyway, she's basically in line to be the next Kappa. She has 2 older brothers, but they're less inclined to leadership than she is. She's just better than them at stuff, especially in collaborating with her underlings and also keeping them in line. She doesn't take any shit, basically. And towards the middle beginning, Kappa Basavi decides that, hey, Locke should be arranged to marry Nazca. And that's going to be like a whole thing. It's like, oh, is this another plot line? How's Locke going to get out of this arranged marriage? Neither he nor Nazca want to marry each other. And first of all, thank goodness that there was no hint of Nazca being in love with him, or him being in love with her. There was no romance there. There was an arranged marriage, and there was like no hint that it was going to become something extra. But do you know why there was no hint that it was going to become something extra? Because the next time Nazca shows up, she's dead in a barrel of horse piss. She was like my favorite character. I don't really have anything much to say about this besides the fact that they set up this really cool character with an interesting plot line, and then she died in a barrel of horse piss. She had 2 older brothers and they were kind of indistinguishable from each other. They were both nice enough lads and they both wore glasses. And they were like okay, but they weren't anything special, so they weren't like mafia boss material. Like, why couldn't have one of them died? Like the older one. Like the one that was like named Heir. Like that would have made so much more sense. And I get that the Grey King was trying to draw out Kappa Basavi, and he needed to like enrage him by murdering his child and dumping her in a barrel of horse piss. But come on, she was like one of the only interesting characters in this book. That's kind of mean. She was the most interesting character in this book. Well, actually, I don't know that because I don't know her very well because she's dead in a barrel of horse piss. I just wanted to see more of her. The other Basavi brothers were like inseparable and indistinguishable from each other. So if one of the 3 Basavi siblings had to die, I hate that it was her. Like, couldn't you have made him like one of the Basavi brothers was sick and like Kappa Basavi doted on him and like really wanted to take care of him and like make the city safe for his sick son, and then the Grey Warden killed him. Grey Warden? Jeez, I've been playing too much Dragon Age. Grey King. Those 2 girls are the only girls Locke's age, besides for Felicia, which is a prostitute he visits for 3 pages. And he visits her because she's a redhead, like Sabitha. But there are 2 older women in this story, so that's cool. There's Doña Sofia, who I'm calling older. I don't know if she's like old enough to be Locke's mum or Locke's age, honestly. I feel like she was older than Locke just because she has higher status and like he's always pandering to her when he's in his Lucas Fairwright disguise. But now that I think about it, I honestly don't know her age. She doesn't have any kids, so we can't judge by that. And she's not really given a description. Like her husband has like a massive fortune, but I mean so has Locke. But I'm choosing to regard her as older because she's thankfully never treated as anything close to a love interest. She does have a very happy marriage with her husband Lorenzo, which is really cool. I'm like glad to see a happy, healthy marriage that isn't between like villains or anything. They're quite enjoyable to watch them hanging out together. And Donna Sophia herself is really interesting. She's like an alchemical botanist, but but we don't see much of like that in action. Like we see she's like made oranges that grow with liquor infused into them. That's really cool, but unfortunately it never really comes into play in the plot, which makes sense because like her role in the plot is mainly to be duped the whole time. But like despite this, she never comes off as stupid. And she's more ahead of the plot than Locke thinks she is. When she gets a visit from Locke disguised as a member of the secret police, she goes to someone who she knows has like vague contacts with the secret police, and she's like, I'm wondering if this is legit. So that is like cool. I really like Donna Sophia. I wish we'd seen more of her, and from like a few vague whisperings I've seen of the rest of the series, she does show up more. So I'm hoping for that. But I feel like the resolution to her storyline was a little cheesy. She's like, gets appointed Countess of Amberglass. And like, that's cool. I wanted that for her. Like, I want her to be the Spider next. But she's like, this is what she has, is how she reacts to being appointed, like, captain of the secret police. What? Sophia squeaked like a girl of 8, a particularly squeaky girl of 8, much accustomed to squeaking loudly. What kind of narration is that? And this is really dumb. Like, obviously she would be shocked and like surprised, but squeaking like a girl of 8, that's dumb. Oh, because the last 8-year-old we saw is drunk and dead. I'm bitter. But yes, the spider is the other older woman, and she is like an older woman. She's old enough to convince people she's senile. And she's the Dowager Countess of Amberglass. I forgot what her name is. Dona Vicenza. Dona Vicenza is the spider, the leader of the secret police, and that's really cool because for a long time you set up this spider as like this really cool battle-scarred soldier. You're like, who is he? He lives in the shadows. He's like the Shadow King. Like, I don't know. Everyone's something king. And then she's just like this old lady who has tea in her big castle. I really liked her. She's very quick-witted. She knows when she's cornered, but she also knows when she can corner someone else. She's a spider. And I have arachnophobia, so it's quite cool that I like her. What else do I have to say about this? I'm not sure, but I liked it. It wasn't perfect, but I liked it, and I'm hoping that the rest of the series continues to improve. I really don't want any spoilers for the rest of the series because, like I said, this is a very excellent story to read going in blind. But if you have any insights into the rest of the series, the Gentleman Bastard series, that you could give me without spoiling anything, I would really appreciate that if you could leave that in the comments. Let me know if you think it gets better, if you think it gets worse, if you think the situation with women improved. That's basically all I have to say on the matter of this book, besides go read it, but I said that already. So thank you very much for listening to my review. I don't have an upload schedule or anything. This channel really isn't my main endeavor or anything, but you can check me out on Twitter and Tumblr and Goodreads on the links in the description. And if you'd like to see more stuff from me, let me know. I would like to do more like booktube tags and stuff. I'm not shy about doing things that I haven't been directly tagged in, though I would love to be tagged in something. But I just don't know what tag I want to do next. So if you could let me know, like, if there's any tags that you would like to see me do, that would be cool too. See ya.